about something very super smart with observability involving machines. At least that's how I'm translating it. But Kevin can give you the much better story about what he is here to talk about today. Kevin, go ahead and take it away. Introduce yourself and what are you here to talk about with us here at the Worldwide Public Sector Summit today?
Yeah, awesome, Kyle. Thank you. Well, first of all, very happy to be here. Awesome to be on air with you and the rest of the folks here at DC Summit. My name is Kevin Lewin. I'm a specialist solutions architect on our cloud operations team. So I help customers to architect and operate workloads in the cloud. Within that broad umbrella, I do focus on our observability services here at AWS. So that includes our native services like CloudWatch and X-Ray, as well as our open source tools like Prometheus and Grafana. And we're here today to talk about how you can improve your observability practice using some AIOps and machine learning tools that AWS provides.
That's awesome. Now, let's go ahead and if you don't mind doing me a favor, let's just go ahead and set the definition of what is observability in this context.
Yeah, that's a great question. So at AWS, we think of observability not just as like monitoring and alerting, which might be kind of the classic thing you do, right? You're sitting in a data center, in a NOC, you're looking at some graphs on a screen, you're monitoring, right? And that's definitely a part of observability. But how we like to think of it is not only just reacting to things that may happen and may have gone wrong, but gaining some proactive insight into how you can optimize and perform your business purposes, with more precision. And so it's not just basic monitoring, but how can you free up your team to focus on your business instead of making sure your workloads are operating properly.
So it's kind of like trying to transform the teams from being reactive and being more proactive to eliminate the toil of constant maintenance or just something that could be a problem over and over again. How can we solve that and be more proactive about detecting these issues before they even occur?
Yeah, absolutely. We always say the worst thing that can happen is for an end user to detect a problem, right?
I believe they call that
Nobody
the
wants
screen
that.
test.
Yeah, right. So we all want to know about these issues before you get a critical ticket or you get a knock on your door from a CEO and they're like, everyone's saying this is down, what's going on, right? So you want to be in front of things as an operations team, and you want to make sure you're aware and you have good visibility into what is happening in your applications.
Okay. Now, thanks for kind of giving us the definition of observability here. Now, it sounds like this can sometimes be a difficult task, but it sounds like you have come up with solutions to be able to use uh, artificial intelligence and machine learning powered insights to bake it into observability data. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, as much as I'd like to take all the credit, I think AWS itself has put so much effort into some of these foundational AI and ML tools, and we are able to use some of them to help us build our observability practice. And so,
What kind of
yeah,
services are we talking about?
yeah, so there's a few that really are kind of foundational. So one would be DevOps Guru. That's a tool for kind of automatically analyzing all of your AWS environment. It uses AI and ML behind the scenes in order to generate insights that are reactive and proactive to help you observe your workloads. The other one would be X-Ray Insights, which allows you to do the same type of automated analysis, but on distributed tracing data. So instead of just looking at AWS infrastructure, we can also look at your application itself and look at that kind of, to detect any anomalies in how your application communicates with other parts of the environment.
And so, just a quick, TLDR about me is I come from a security background when it comes to like application observability and operations. I have a little bit of insight, but mostly I've focused on the security side of things. When it comes to services like DevOps Guru, CloudWatch Anomaly Detection, X-Ray Insights, would I have to spend much time trying to figure out how to enable these and get these operationalized to implement these new technologies for observability?
So for something like DevOps Guru, it's actually very simple. It's basically a click of a button in the console, and you can have it analyze, almost all of the services in your AWS account. Right? It analyzes the CloudWatch metrics and it detects any anomalous behavior. For something like X-Ray, it does require a little bit of work. You need to usually instrument your application to produce traces.
Okay.
There's a lot of different helpers, especially within the AWS ecosystem. For example, in Lambda, it's just a checkbox to produce traces from a function. There's a lot of other kind of integrations built into the console to help make it easier for you. And then once you're producing traces, it is just another check of a box to start doing the automated analysis and AI/ML on that data.
Okay, so it sounds like there may be some, involvement from like my behalf if I'm writing my own custom application to get it to for X-ray to be able to analyze it, but using something like Lambda or other supported services within AWS, it sounds like it's a checkbox.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, uh, Lambda, like I was saying, you can, produce traces just with a checkbox that kind of trace the invocation time of the function. And if you were to look at instrumenting end to end, that's where you would need to write some code to trace downstream client requests and things like that. But there's a ton of good documentation out there and examples of how you can do that in X-ray.
And I believe you were going to be showing us how to do this momentarily. But if I wanted to get like hands on myself, because I'm a very hands on, do it myself, bang my head on the keyboard a couple times kind of person, how could I go about learning more about how to do this?
Yeah, for sure. So we have an AIOps workshop that we have built that allows you to get your hands on with an example application. You get to produce some traces and you get to run DevOps Guru and detect some issues and then generate some, alarms and things from those insights.
Awesome. And I believe we will be putting the links for that somewhere in the chat over here, over there,
Somewhere. Yeah.
wherever it might be. Awesome. So, I love looking at demos. You have a demo. I would love to see a demo, and I'm sure our audience would love to see how this all gets stitched together as well. So, I
Yeah.
guess the question is, Kevin, are you ready to show a demo?
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. I have the power to bring up your screen. It's not because I like, anything
Awesome.
weird. You shared
Yeah.
your screen and I brought it up. That's all. All
Great.
right. So, what do we have DevOps Guru open
Yeah.
and
So,
something
yeah.
shows unhealthy.
Yes. Yeah. So, definitely like, when you use something like DevOps Guru, part of the big benefit is that you get this at a glance view and dashboard that is generated for you automatically. Like, I didn't build any of this dashboarding. This is all just coming out of the box with DevOps Guru. Um, and what DevOps Guru is, you basically are just enabling it in your AWS account. We can quickly show, how you can set something like that up. Um, so you are just you're choosing where to send notifications in case of problems. You're choosing if you want to set up like incident manager and a few other things. But this is really all the kind of setup that DevOps Guru requires.
And sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for your from your demo. I see management account. Does that mean that we can centrally manage multiple accounts within DevOps Guru across an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just turn this on at the org level and you can have like a central observability account. And that is kind of what we recommend at scale is the best way to do this, is to
Mhm.
have this central point for your telemetry data, your logs, your metrics, your traces, your insights, and you can take action and do a lot of analytics and things from that central area.
See, I think that's huge because if you have a bunch of development teams that are working within their own different accounts, as they may and probably should, but you want to roll up the observability findings into a central account that maybe SREs are responsible for, or at least having a way to aggregate all of these different metrics is huge, and you get to scale that as new accounts get created.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times it's different teams who, multiple teams might need this, right? So the application teams themselves might want some of this data. So you can set it up in those sub accounts. But yeah, like you were saying, your central kind of SRE, your ops teams, they need usually want this centralized. And so there's a big trend towards doing that with all of the AWS observability services, not just DevOps Guru, but this definitely does have that functionality too.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining. I know I don't want to take too much time about that, but I saw it and I had to ask about it. But I know it's not the coolest thing you're going to be showing, but it's still pretty simple as far as configuration, but powerful in my opinion.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
trying to oversimplify it, but aggregating
yeah.
these
It's
findings
it's
is really
a
cool.
it's a big benefit of the service, that you can kind of just so easily get this foundational part of your observability strategy. And I do want to clarify, this doesn't give you complete, fully realized observability, right? This is one part of the puzzle. This gives you a very good foundation over your AWS infrastructure components. And then from there, you build on top of it with things like X-ray and CloudWatch anomaly detection, which I can show you as well.
Yeah, let's go ahead
Uh,
and take a look at that.
but yeah, starting with the foundation of what we get here in DevOps Guru. We can see that I'm just choosing to analyze all the resources in this account. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't even know what all this is, but there's things like some EKS clusters, there's some Lambda functions, and what happens is that DevOps Guru on it analyzes for any anomalous activity, and when it does, it creates what's called an insight. And an insight is broken into two different categories, right? So one would be reactive. A reactive insight means there was some problem that happened or is maybe still happening, and we need to go and fix it, right? So we can see here that there's an anomalous amount of 400 status codes coming from this ALB, right?
Quick,
And
who in the chat can tell me what 400 status codes from HTTP service means? I won't,
right, so
we
yeah,
won't
I
focus
mean,
too much on that, but let the
yeah,
chat tell us what they think.
right, right. So basically, there's some errors when you're accessing whatever service is on the other side of this ALB. So a 400 error could be like a 404 not found, of course, or 403 forbidden, or various things that basically indicate that the application is not okay, right? So it's something to go explore and figure out what's happening there. Um, and we can see we get a nice kind of graph output of this anomalous behavior. And how this works behind the scenes, you don't have to do anything about, training ML models or setting up AI or anything like that. This is all set up behind the scenes. It learns and it analyzes the behavior of these metrics and services coming out of your account, and it's telling you when something is going on out of the ordinary. So it's really nice because previously you have to set up these types of like thresholds and say, I want to set an alarm when my CPU percentage is above 80%, right? And that's not always good, because maybe it's supposed to run above 80%, right? In a big environment, there's all kinds of different things. And a lot of times it's good to just know when something is anomalous, right? Something is
Yeah.
not
So
as it usually is.
in a sense, this is baselining what is normal for this particular workload or application, and then saying, okay, 80% may be normal for this, but if it spikes to 100% over like 15 minutes, then we're gonna notify your
Yeah.
cause and insight.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we can see that this is usually at 0, which is what you want, right? You want HTTP 200 OK status codes, not 400. So there was this brief period where there were some 400s, and the anomalous behavior was detected, and it gives you a recommendation on how to resolve this, which is really, really, really nice. So not for this particular insight, but we can go find another one and see what's going on here. So these 500 errors, this would be a different one. Similar thing, and we can see a recommendation. It takes you right to some documentation that would show you how to fix that. So it's a really nice workflow, and that would be a reactive insight. So there was something happening, we need to react to it. The other type of insight is actually a proactive insight, and I think these are really cool. Because this is basically saying there might not be anything, breaking in your application, but there's some things going on that you should be aware of, and maybe you can optimize going forward that can help prevent an outage in the future. So this is kind of like a really mature observability practice. Like I mentioned earlier, something very simple is just like monitoring and reacting to things going wrong, whereas this is giving you insight to help you prevent a future outage. Right? So what we can see here is that it's saying I have a Lambda function that's not have enough subnets. And it'll give us some information here on the recommendation on how to fix this. So I can see this Lambda function can be deployed to 3 availability zones, but it's only deployed to 2, right? And Lambda functions, since they are you only pay for invocations, there's no reason not to deploy them to more AZs, right? So this is giving us that kind of well-architected guidance and saying, hey, you might want to go through and deploy this to more availability zones. And it'll take you directly to the documentation here that will give you the information you need on how to perform that change and some more data about it.
That's really cool, because one thing that I hear from customers that are starting their AWS journey is, okay, again, I come from the security world, so it's like, a security alert is generated. So we'll say, for example, a guard duty finding. What do I do with this finding? And we have the recommendations there. And I think it's important that we provide these steps for those that may even be seasoned with AWS and have that years of experience. But for a particular, insight, what do I do with it? Instead of just saying, I have all these insights, I have no path forward to remediate this, so I'm just going to kind of ignore it. Not saying you
Yeah.
should, but that's awesome that it's providing why it's recommending it as well and how you can fix it.
Right, definitely. It's just really great. Imagine, I used to work night shift in a knock, right? Imagine instead of just seeing a random alarm, if you see this type of recommendation along with the alarm, and that's so useful to get that kind of context. And
Yeah, nothing would be worse than me going, Kevin, you have a problem, and then just walking away. You'd be like,
right, yeah,
what?
yeah. I mean, definitely, and that's what a lot of it is. That's what it used to be, right? You have your big dashboard, and if something is red or beeping, you got to just go figure it out. And the aim of this is to improve that for the operators, but then also like something like this, you can take and move forward with your architects and developers, and you can kind of improve the future states of your application too.
Now, you mentioned X-ray earlier. Do you have anything you could show me about X-ray?
Yeah, I do. So
Awesome.
let's go take a look at X-ray. So X-ray has a tool called Insights, and this would be
Fitting.
yeah, right. This would be the AIOps
Okay.
section of X-ray, right? So this is again same kind of story as DevOps Guru. This is taking in all your X-ray traces And behind the scenes, it's going to analyze them and try to detect anomalous behavior in the trace. Um, and so this is I think a really nice thing because it takes you kind of end to end, right? X-ray is a tool that allows you to go from client request outside of your environment all the way to the back end, like your database, and you can see how that request traverses through your environment and know if something is not behaving normally. So it's really cool, and it's something I always recommend. I think a lot of customers, when starting out with observability, maybe they have some metrics and things like that, but they don't have these X-ray and tracing, and it really gives you a lot. But specifically to look at an insight and see how this kind of automated detection and anomaly works, we can see if I were to click on one of these insights, um, then we can go to it and we can see exactly where the anomaly is in our trace map, right? So every request goes through your environment, and when you trace it, you see these nodes as it moves throughout the environment. So if you think of something like microservices, as you get more and more distributed, it's hard to find these root causes of the problems. And we can see it's plainly lit up here on the map. There's some type of anomaly in the response times here. And that by in and of itself is nice, but if we go and we look at that trace itself, we can see uh, a lot of really good data here. So this is the trace that caused that anomaly, right? I only have one trace in this environment. But we can then go look at the trace itself, and we can see exactly where this error occurred, right? So this is the full trace path of the request, right? It's going to the client, it's going to this front end, and then it hits an ECS container, which eventually makes a call to a database. And we can see the trace data below. We have the timings of each step or segment in the request. And then we can click into where this error pops up. It was a nice big red exclamation point for you. And we can see that there was an exception there. So this bubbled up from my application that I've instrumented with X-ray. This is a Go error where we can see that we're calling on this Postgres database, and basically we got to fault back, right? Bad connection. And we can even see the SQL statement that generated that error.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's a really nice end-to-end workflow where one, you're alerted of the anomaly. Two, you can see the full path and see what that request was. And then you could see the exception, and then you could even see the SQL statement that caused the exception, all in one kind of nice kind of drill down workflow.
That is powerful. And thank you for showing that, Kevin. And then, you mentioned that if folks want to get their hands onto it, as far as like a workshop goes, we included a link over there. And that includes setting up traces. But we'll also include links to the documentation. This is really cool, Kevin, and I appreciate you showing us a demo. Again, I'm a visual and hands-on learner myself. Real quick, before we go, is there any other resources that you could provide our audience with, or just any other things that you'd like to mention before we head out?
Yeah, so I do have one thing. We have an observability best practices guide that we can link off somewhere over there, right? And this is a guide, written by us solutions architects. It's not technical documentation, but more how do you architect these services? How do you deploy them? And how can you start taking advantage of all this observability to help you with your workloads?
Awesome, Kevin. Thank you so much for spending time with us to talk about this topic of observability. I know I've learned a lot just in the 20 minutes that we've spent time with each other. But unfortunately, our time has come to an end.
Mhm.
Everyone have a wonderful day. Keep on for us live at the Worldwide Public Sector Summit in Washington, D.C. Back to our friends that are live on the expo floor. Take it easy.